I felt like, to simplify it, that I was going to snap mentally. I knew myself well to know, okay, this don't feel normal. There wasn't any pain, wasn't any discomfort, but I knew something wasn't clicking right. I just felt like on edge. So much so I said, I think I need to talk.
Welcome to another episode of Strong Place by Mental Health America of Central Carolinas. I'm Io Johnson, Executive Director, and today I have my guest, Duvale Murchison. Deval's life story is a testament to resilience, creativity, and a relentless commitment to social change. Born and raised in Lansing, Michigan, Deval's upbringing instilled in him values of hard work, integrity, and community service from an early age. For 27 years, Deval served with distinction in the Michigan Department of Corrections, rising through the ranks to retire as a lieutenant. His tenure with the corrections system provided him with first-hand foresight into the challenges faced by those working under such demanding environments. Upon retiring, Deval embarked on a new chapter of his life, delving into the world of acting. His debut in the major film Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice marked the beginning of a burgeoning career in the entertainment industry. With appearances in nearly 15 television shows, series, and films, Deval's talent and versatility as an actor garnered widespread acclaim. However, it was his transition into film production that truly allowed Deval to amplify his voice and advocate for meaningful change. Producing several films and documentaries, including the upcoming PTSDOC, the hidden trauma and disturbing metamorphosis of the corrections officer, slated for release in October 2024. Deval sheds light on pressing social issues. Through this project, he aims to underscore the alarming rate of suicides among correction officers, addressing the underlying issues and advocating for system reform. Deval, welcome to Strong Place.
I feel welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel very welcome. Thanks again.
Also, personal disclaimer, Deval is also our wonderful producer and director. So I am so honored to be interviewing him today. You know, firsthand, you've been in this struggle with me since we started.
Oh, yeah. It's a good struggle.
Really a struggle.
Like good trouble is a good struggle.
Good trouble.
Yeah.
We're going to call it good trouble. So thank you. You have been instrumental
Thank you.
in getting us launched, and truly appreciate it. So, you know, we've gotten to know each other over the few months that we have been recording and planning for the podcast. And I know a little bit about your story, but I feel like I don't know all of it. So tell me your personal mental health story.
My personal mental health story is now good. I think the older I get, the more cognizant I am of the need to take care of my well-being. If I'm going to eat good, I want to make sure that my brain eats good, and that's taking care of it. The story really changed for me and evolved during my life in corrections. And the title of my documentary, I call it, the subtitle specifically and on purpose, The Disturbing Metamorphosis of the Corrections Officer, because that job changes us. It has a profound mental impact on us from the day we walk through those gates until we get out of there. And for me, my mental health journey was tough. I didn't realize I was struggling like I was, like most corrections officers. I didn't realize it until after I was about to end my career, when I realized, man, I had changed so much. It's quite an evolution. So it's like I kind of went on a roller coaster ride, developing into a corrections officer and rising through the ranks and dealing with that whole world and raising a family and then changing. And I remember my daughter making a statement once, and Daddy's so mean. That's our story, corrections officer story. And so my mental health journey was going through all of this stuff, not realizing how I was changing or metamorphosizing. Today I'm good, only because of support of people, family, friends, lifestyle. So it's been a up and down journey, tough one, but I'm good. Hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. What were what was your initial reaction when your daughter said, "Daddy's so mean"? Like, did it encourage you to like go to therapy, or did you work through it on your own? Some people use prayer. Did you use a combination of things? Like, tell me like how you got to that point of evolution with your mental health after that.
Strangely enough, that comment, the comment was, Daddy was mean.
Okay.
I learned about that in the last 4 or 5 years.
Oh, so it wasn't
as
in
an
the moment.
adult.
Okay.
It wasn't in the moment. But I did hear that quite a bit, though. Don't get me wrong, I did hear that. Did we go through how it made me feel? At the time, as strangely as it sounds, it was almost like a badge of honor because that's what it took to survive in that environment.
Right.
And I thrived and did well and wasn't going to be taken advantage of by staff or prisoners. So it was weirdly almost like a badge of honor, which is crazy to think about it now. But as an adult, several years ago, 3-4 years ago, my daughter mentioned it to one of the relatives. I mean, me and my daughter are tight, by the way. Let me just make sure I explain that. She and I talk on FaceTime 2 or 3 times a week. We have been since I've been retired these 10 years. We just moved to North Carolina. So we're really good. But when I heard that, the impact was different because I felt so bad.
Right.
Like, how much did I harm her at being a mean dad? I mean, I wasn't mean to her like abusive in that sense, but just stern, very, very stern and no nonsense. Loving at the same time, as crazy again as that sounds, doing both of those things. So to hear it now impacts me in a bad way. I don't like to hear that,
Right.
quite honestly. Mental health, seeking therapy, I didn't. Pray a lot, of course, read the Word of God a lot, talk to people just in conversation, but I think I self-diagnosed and self-helped help Deval. I didn't really seek counseling like that. Would I today? Absolutely.
So what do you tell younger correction officers that are like just getting into the field? Would you tell them to not let the work become their personality, or would you tell them do what you have to do while you're in there, but try to figure out a way to make sure that you're keeping yourself balanced as you're going through this career? Because you were talking 27 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
I was a 24-year-old kid when I started.
Right. So what would you tell young correction officers today that are just starting in their career?
When I used to address training classes, the new incoming trainees, I was contacted on a regular basis to come and speak to the kids I shouldn't say kids, the adults, the new corrections officers. And I told them 3 things, and now I would tell them 4. The first 3 was, 1, be yourself. And I would still say it to this day. Whomever you are in the streets, outside of the gates, be that person inside the facility. Of course, with professionalism.
Right.
2, do your job. The inmates know you have a job to do. We expect you to do your job, so do your job. And 3, give respect and you'll get it. That does not, and I'm talking about where the prisoners are concerned. And I'm not saying be subservient to a prisoner by any shape or form.
Right.
But they got something coming. So give respect and you get it back. But the 4th thing I would add, which to me now is most important, having been through this career and now based on what I'm finding in my documentary, I have found through my interviews for the documentary, put yourself in a position to have somebody to talk to. If you need a therapist, get one. If you know somebody who's a licensed therapist, talk to that person. Because if you don't, the way the environment affects you, I mean, nobody's immune to it, not one person. So the way it affects you, you have to put something in place. That's what I will tell them. Put something in place where you can talk and get that stuff out, because you are going to change that environment. And it's not going to be for the better. It's just not.
So let's talk about the documentary.
Okay.
Because I know it was something that you're that you're really passionate about.
I am.
What have you learned? Like what is the producing this documentary taught you in terms of I think maybe long term how that field affects correction officers' mental health? And I want to make sure I'm careful to not say men, because we do know there's also women
absolutely
that work in corrections. So what stands out to you the most about what you've learned in those experiences?
It's the subtitle, The Disturbing Metamorphosis of the Corrections Officer. Every single person I interview, 17 officers, 5 therapists, We all went through the exact same thing. Wow. Where you just morph into this hard, stern, tough, fearless person. You change from who you were. The core of who you are should stay the same, but don't get it wrong. Some people have actually become their environment and suffered professionally. Mm-hmm. And some of, as the documentary will depict and show, commit suicide because the environment is so tough. So I learned that we are all in it together. We all go through the same thing, black, white, male, female. Mm-hmm. The environment changes you. So and to add to that, talk to somebody because you're going to change. And that's the big thing, the commonality of everybody just morphing into this rigid, tough. Alcoholism is high blood pressure, no drug use because we have zero tolerance, but you just change. That's been the commonality of everything. We just all go through this tough change and you don't see it coming. Yeah, you really don't even feel it because you're trying to adjust to the environment. It takes you about 5 years to get it in corrections, where you just kind of go, I got this. I can figure this thing out. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many changing prisoners and different types and personalities of staff that come in and out. Mm-hmm. After about 5 years, you get it. So
when we're filming this, this is not when it airs, but when while we're filming, this is National Men's Mental Health Month. Mm-hmm. What do you think are some of the things that we can say or ways that we can encourage men to lean into their mental health and prioritize it?
We just need to tell them and be direct about it. Brother, we need to talk. Mm-hmm. When I say brother, it's not about a racial thing.
Right.
Brother, we need to talk.
Right.
And you should talk because we internalize stuff so much. My message would be and is, let's talk about it. It's okay. Interesting. I did this event. When I say did the event, I participated in Real Men, Real Talk. It was sponsored by African American Male Well Agency. It was a Zoom call. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'll get on this call. Why not? Right. And I think there were 60 or 70 of us from across the nation on this call.
Okay.
And brothers were just talking about their mental well-being. I was so struck by how many brothers were willing to talk openly to strangers on this call about what they're dealing with. So much so, I thought, man, let's do this in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. So through the 100 Black Men, I reached out and said, hey guys, let's put together this little event. Let's have a fireside chat. Let's just talk. And we set a rule. And the rule was, whatever's talked about in here stays in here. And everybody agreed. No judgment. Let's just talk. And we got together and people were filling each other out. You know, nobody really wants to talk. And hopefully this is answering the question.
Right.
And I just decided I'll break the ice. And so I just began to tell my story. And then everybody just began to talk.
Right.
But it took somebody to break the ice. So to answer your question, that's a long answer. Someone needs to break the ice and tell their story, but then it opens up the door for so many other people to go, you know what? I'm dealing with that same thing. Mm-hmm. You'd be amazed. I was just at an event back in a week ago in Atlanta for the 100 Black Men Conference, and they had a fireside chat, a big one, probably 200 or 300 guys in the room. Oh, wow. And I won't go into detail, but the questions that came out of that and the therapy that was needed, like immediate, on the spot, where the moderator said, I want to take you on as a client right now, no charge, because it was deep.
Wow. So
someone broke the ice.
Okay.
We need to break the ice.
You mentioned that on that Zoom call, the 60 or 70 men, that the person that was facilitating it was a stranger. And then you had a fireside chat in Charlotte, and then there's a similar one in Atlanta with a lot more men.
All men.
Right, like two,
all three, yeah.
Right. I'm wondering, do you think that men are more likely to open up to a stranger? What do loved ones, right? What do moms, wives, sisters, can we do something if we're close to the person, or do you think that it's easier to open up to people that you don't know as a man?
You know what? I think it's easier to a stranger.
Yeah, that's
we
what
saw
I was
that
thinking.
this past weekend in Atlanta. when the brothers got up to talk and ask their questions, one of them, maybe two, one in particular that I remember, mentioned how he prefaced his question by saying he doesn't really trust family to take this information on without judging him, without spreading his business, making him feel bad. So he was very apprehensive to talk to family. And another guy did mention that as well. So yeah, it's easy to talk to strangers because we just kind of embrace you. We don't really know you, but
Right.
it's about love.
Right. And not worried about being judged
Exactly.
or being used against you. I hear men say that often, that they have a hard time. I hear husbands say this and significant others, partners, say this, that they're afraid sometimes to open up to their wives or partners because they think that in an argument one day, she'll use that against him. So that's what made me think that maybe the key is to getting more men to embrace their mental health is to encourage them to talk to a stranger, finding a therapist, somebody they don't know, that they can just get it out. And I think a lot of times the way that things end up eating away at us is that we don't release it. We don't share it.
Exactly.
In the church world, they would say, you got to expose the enemy, right? So
The enemy is enemy, really.
right, yes,
Yeah.
right. And so a lot of times we play things over our head in our mind. And I think that there's just power in being able to share and talk about things.
There's so much power and vulnerability. We got to get past is it machismo or machoism? Guys, get past it.
Right.
We all know you're alpha male. It's okay. I mean, if you cry, you cry. If you weep,
Right.
you weep. I mean, that's just part of it. Don't mean you're weak.
Right.
It's just how it is. And there's a strength and vulnerability like that. I tell my story, you kind of jogged the memory when you said men may not trust or want to talk to their spouse. In 2018, I was going through a real tough time. I moved to Charlotte in 2015. And for me, it was a culture shock to be around so many black people and just see the black progression and the love. And just, I wasn't used to that culture coming from the North. And then I got exposed to the 100 black men of Greater Charlotte and that whole world, that circle of brothers and sisters who are really, really doing well. It just, the whole culture here was so different.
Right.
And so I felt the need to rush and catch up because so many people were doing so well professionally and financially and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, I got to catch up. So I internalized that energy and tried my hardest to and things I was doing wasn't working. What I discovered later on was I was using professional muscle memory from Michigan that don't work in North Carolina. So it was a struggle. And I put so much pressure on myself that one day, 2018, I'm sitting at my desk. Now, again, you got to take 2.5, 3 years of just trying error, like, man, nothing's clicking. Sitting in my little nook there at my desk, and my wife's in the other room, and I felt something. When I say felt something, I mean, I felt like, to simplify it, that I was going to snap mentally. I knew myself well enough to know, okay, this don't feel normal. It wasn't any pain, wasn't any discomfort, but I knew something wasn't clicking right. I just felt like on edge. So much so I said, I think I need to talk. So I said, well, here goes nothing. Walked in the living room. I said, hey, Michelle, I got a question for you. I said, who do you think is my best friend? She said, your brother? I said, yeah, but who else? I said, you are. She said, I am? I said, yeah. I said, I can tell my best friend anything, right? She said, yeah. I said, I feel like such a failure. And I just snapped, cried, just broke down. Just all the pressure. But I knew I had to talk. I knew I had to get that out. I'm glad I had enough spiritual or whatever perceptivity to know, talk, get this out. Because if I had to stay in the nook, something would happen. I just know that. And then she came over and talked to me, and she talked me through it. And after that conversation and her she's real brilliant and she's done the work. She's been through the counseling and training to get her mental well-being intact. She's really in tune with who she is. And I wasn't like that. You're talking about a couple of years after corrections. I'm still trying to decompress from the prison world. But that conversation helped me. And that's when I realized, you know what? I got to do this differently and not put so much pressure on myself. But the point is, had I not talked to her, knowing I could talk to her, and at that point, it didn't matter if she judged me. Now, I wish she wouldn't. I just knew I needed to talk. So, like I said, you jogged that memory. And I'm glad I did that because I tell that story often. And I tell it to people, brothers, it doesn't even matter. And I'm just, hey, this is what happened to me, for real. And that's the story I always tell to break the ice.
Right.
Because there's so much vulnerability in that, you know.
Right. Do you find it helping? Do any of them come back to you and say, you know what, I went home, I talked to my wife, or I talked to whatever, and I really do feel better? Do you know, do you ever get any feedback that it's been helps?
That, no, but when brothers talk to other men, yes.
Okay.
It's hard to get those conversations going. Like, for instance, we are all watching, when I say we, a group of brothers got together over another friend's house and watched the Celtics game in Dallas, game 2. I was just having a good time, which would have been the perfect environment and setting for a fireside chat, but it wasn't the time. But I believe that had we done that, a lot would have come out. But so it's hard to, first of all, get those sessions going. So I don't hear a lot of that. I don't participate in a lot because I don't hear about them. My goal, quite honestly, is to have those fireside chats where we just talk about it because, we got stuff.
Right. I have an adult son. He'll be 30 this year.
Okay.
What would you recommend for those of us that are mothers of sons, how to approach that topic about mental health? I remember a few weeks ago, I want to say it was about 8 weeks ago, to a couple months ago, I just got this overwhelming feeling of worry about him, and it was about 11:30 at night, and he usually goes to bed early. He's like me, like an early riser, but I couldn't shake it. Like, is he okay? Is he okay? And he lives in Michigan, so he's hundreds of miles away from me. So it's not
What
like
city?
I could. He lives in Northville,
I know what that's at.
and so I just texted him. Said, "Hey, are you okay?" And I didn't expect him to text me back because I figured he was asleep. But he did, like a couple minutes later, and he said, "I'm okay, Mom. What's wrong?" And I just said, "Would you tell me the truth? If you weren't okay, I really need to know this." And I think I know that working in mental health now, I'm like just more sensitive to everything now. And men's mental health has been just kind of weighing on me. And I'll tell you in a minute why. But he said, no, but I would tell you, he's like, "Are you okay though?" So I said, "I am. I'm just a little worried about you. And I just wanted to make sure you're good." He said, "No, Mom, I'm good. I would tell you if I wasn't." The next day we talked, and he said, "I'm going to tell you that about maybe a minute or two before you text me, I woke up out of a deep sleep, and something said, pick up the phone." He said, "I think God woke me up, Mom, so I
absolutely.
could respond to your text so you wouldn't be worrying about me all night if you didn't hear back from me." And I said, "Okay," and we were able to talk, and he was like, "Mom, I'm okay," He's like, and so that was what I did in the moment. But I just always wonder, as a mom, if you're worrying about your son's mental health.
Dads do it with the daughters too.
Yeah. Right. What do we say? I think that women, like, we're a little bit more open with talking about our feelings. Not that we're more sensitive. I do believe that oftentimes men are more sensitive, but we just talk about it more.
Right.
So what do you recommend as just a way for moms or sisters or whoever to approach a man if you just want to check on them?
Yeah, well, let me first start by answering your question by saying this, to now kind of look at the camera. To the mothers out there, the Lord heard a mother's cry, and it was internal. And he woke up the son to comfort the mom and the mother's cry. So that just lets you know the Lord hears you. He's got you.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of different ways to answer that, but you really kind of answered it. You called, and for mothers, you called out of concern. You weren't badgering, saying, hey, this is a deep concern, and just your approach put him at ease. He was more concerned about you versus himself, but that's one way to do it. And praise, love and praise. And sometimes, depending on who the man is, sometimes you may have to show a little tough love. And it's, listen, I birthed you. I know you probably better than you know yourself. I love you. You know you're my guy. You need to really get something together here, brother. Whatever that is. I mean, sometimes you just got to kind of give him that spanking with love at the same time.
Right.
That's one way to answer that. Recommend if you know that they're going through something and they really just won't talk it through, perhaps there's a person, a male mentor, that somehow or another you get them to be introduced somehow. Women are brilliant at this type of stuff, so you can craftily introduce him to somebody that will get that ball rolling. Again, there's a number of ways, because for each person it's going to be different, but you did it. You started with out of love, praise, and sometimes a little tough love, and just let them know, hey, I know where you're at. And if it's not me you want to talk to somebody, because I see you struggling. And it's okay to struggle, because you ain't the only one. And real quick, what I do with my mentees, I mentor young Black boys. And what I do with them, and even my own son growing up, I used a lot of analogies just to get them to see it, the picture, and understand it better, just to get my point across better, a lot of analogies. And now what I do is I incorporate, for this generation, famous people who have done or are doing what I'm trying to suggest. So if it's your son, I don't know who his favorite person is. Let's just hypothetically say it's LeBron.
I was gonna say me, but okay.
Okay. Okay.
But
let's just say it's LeBron.
I think he's a LeBron fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you know LeBron sees a therapist? And just had a call. No, man, let me tell you what he said. I found this so interesting. The guy of his stature, and he's pure alpha male. I mean, as they come, this guy seen a therapist. There's nothing wrong with him. He ain't crazy. That's how we, reduce or deduce therapy down to, you're crazy. He ain't crazy. Sometimes you need to talk to some folks. I just found it pretty interesting and let it just hang there.
Gotcha.
That's the stuff I do with this generation. Sometimes males have to be done that way, because when we start to, you should, we shut down.
Yeah.
My daughter, real quick, she told me one day she was just trying to figure it out. This was like a couple weeks ago. Just trying to figure it out. I've been talking to her and coaching her and helping her and advising and counseling. I'm like, man, I got to get through to her. And I did what I just told you. I found a book through Myron Golden, one of the people I follow very closely. The book was 10 times is easier than 2 times. And so I told her about this book and how it changed my life professionally and got me so laser focused and centered, and how it just helped me. And I told her how my life went. It was already going really well, but it went exponential once I applied some of the stuff I read in this very simple book, and how my life just took off. And she knows everything that's happening, so she sees it. So she's aware of what, and I said, but that book did it. And so I said, you should get the book. Well, she said she would. I asked her a couple days later, did you get the book? Nope. I bought it and sent it to her. Wasn't 2 days passed, she called me about the book in the first chapter, how it's so revolutionary to her. So now I'm like, don't let too many days pass, stay with the momentum. So that's the kind of thing I have to do, and that's what I recommend for a long answer to a mother, to a son.
I do notice he's been actually reading more lately, which I
that's
love.
it.
Yeah, which I definitely love. I want to talk about the shift for you with your career. So you come out of corrections, you go into acting, we got to get bit by that acting bug. That's another high pressure career, right? It's another stressful industry. People think, they look at, actors on TV, television, movies, and think, oh, they have the life. But it's stressful. I have a sister that works in Broadway entertainment, and it's not for play. It's not for the weak.
Absolutely not. Definitely that point.
Right. And you brought up LeBron, you know, and people like, you know, finding your child's like favorite person that they look up to. What has been in that industry taught you in terms of how we take care of our mental health? Because I think that's a different animal than corrections.
It really depends on what your aspirations and goals are in the career. For me, I wanted to learn how to make films like the pros.
Okay.
So my whole thing of getting on set had more to do with learning how to shoot films. What is the crew doing? How does this work? How do they do that? Why? Versus I want to be a star.
Gotcha.
So if you want to be a star, when I say the pressure is tremendous because the competition is vicious, it's a lot thereof. So you can actually put yourself under so much pressure, you morph into somebody that you'll do almost anything to get to be what you want to be. I don't feel that pressure. I don't have that pressure because I'm not trying to be a star.
Right.
I'd rather be behind the camera than in front of it. Now, there's a lot of friends of mine who all they care about is being in front. So they wake up every day. They're almost like influencers who got to put on this front every day. Like, can you be off camera?
Right.
When you're off camera?
Film everything and
Yeah.
everything's B-roll or something. They got to be making a reel almost for every moment of their life.
I would say this to those that really want to aspire to be in that world. Make sure your soul is right. You got somebody to talk to, therapy. Make sure your mental well-being is intact. Or you got a backup plan because that world will eat you alive. Really, it really, really will.
Right.
It's dangerous. Lucrative? Absolutely. Dangerous? Yes, indeed.
So it sounds like you used morph also with this. So there's the metamorphosis of the correction officer, and now there can be a metamorphosis in acting. So I feel like the common thread with both, right, and high pressure industries is they change you.
Yes,
They change you, and if you're not careful, not for the better.
Right. Corrections.
You're not really paying attention.
Yes, corrections, and that's the key, not paying attention. But in corrections, you don't know how to pay attention because, again, you're trying to adjust to the environment. You're trying to figure out how to be a good officer. You got to get to work every day. There's so much going on mentally in that 8-hour shift, day after day after day. So you don't even see it or feel it. You just all of a sudden realize you're there.
Right.
Well, in Hollywood, you have to become that. It's like the goal is set before you. Like, hey, you want to be this? Here's how you get there. So you know how to get yourself to that, and there's a high price to pay. And so you have to, for the most part, morph into somebody that you may not necessarily want to be or used to be, but being so enamored with being a star, you will self-morph. Corrections, it just happens.
Right. So one's intentional, one's
unintentional. Exactly.
Intentional.
Yep.
Gotcha. So you are doing more of the production, like more of the behind the scenes thing now, right? And you've been in front of the screen. So how is that different for you in terms of, I guess, how you approach life? You know, do you do both now? Are you still acting? Or are you just doing producing and directing?
Producing and directing first. But if the right role comes along, I will act again. I mean, I got a couple of good friends where I make a call, say, hey, listen, you working on this project? Give me a camera front.
Got you. Okay.
And you know, that's a bit arrogant on my part to say, give me, or greedy, give me camera front. But I've been fortunate, honestly, I thank God for it, that every time I go on set, I never ask, I never posture, I never position myself. I just usually end up camera front.
Okay. Yeah, you have that presence. I could definitely see that.
Well, and I don't go in trying to do that. I promise you, I stay in the back.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm kind of big and imposing, so I'm like, let me just stay back if people want to do their thing. But so I got a couple of friends who will, one in particular, he's a first AD, first assistant director, who will say, hey, Deval, I got this coming up. Can you make it to Richmond? Can you come to Georgia? Sure.
I want to end with what you ultimately want people to know about Duvale Murchison.
He loved his people. He loved black boys. And he literally gave his life, if that's what it takes, for the betterment, to help young black boys to future-proof their life and to grow up to have great legacies. Our black boys in crisis. I believe that. I watched the school-to-prison pipeline for 27 years. So it behooves me. My number one passion is mentoring young black boys. Number two is videography and filmmaking, in that order. So I want them to remember, hey, he did a lot of film work. He did a little acting, this, that, and the other. He loved his family, but boy, he sure did love them black boys too. He did everything he could to help them win. And that's actually the title of my group mentoring session I do in Title I schools. Win.
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 Absolutely.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here today.
Thank you.
Tell our audience where they can find you on social media.
It's very simple. My name, Duvale Murchison, Duvale Murchison. Duvale Murchison. Everything is Duvale Murchison. Very simple.
Okay.
I'm easy to find. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been fun.
You've been watching another episode of Strong Place by Mental Health America of Central Carolinas. I'm Io Johnson, Executive Director, and you can find us on YouTube at MHA of Central Carolinas, Facebook, LinkedIn as well. Thank you for joining us.